They're extraordinarily dramatically lit, though. When you look at the lighting in those trees, they're eerie and weird. I mean, we should explain, to be effective, you have to backlight these images, these negatives, to make them, to be able to read them, really, to get them to glow like that. But you do, for example, this one here with this plant where you've got, well, the background's black negative, and then there's a sort of grey, ghostly light on the leaves and the branches. But then this really white, bright light, which just highlights the tips of some of those leaves. How does that variation happen in the lighting?
Well, it's a product of the opacity to light of different parts of the subject. The general rule of thumb is that the denser the subject, if it's a branch or a very dense leaf, the less light will pass through it or around it, and the lighter the shadow will be. That is, the less light will be exposing the film. It'll be lighter. And where there's great darkness on the film, that's where there was no resistance to any light. I've said that to other people, and I'll say it now again, these are really works of imagination. They're not things you can see with the naked eye when you plan it, unlike normal photography. In other words, I have to imagine in my mind's eye how the film will respond, and what the shadows will look like, because it's not just simple silhouette. I try to make these works such that the light will pass through certain subjects, thin leaves, and through the fur of animals and so forth, as well as I want to create overlapping shadows of different objects at different points between the flash and the film, which can be 2 to 3 meters. So there's a three-dimensional aspect to conceiving these works. I have to imagine in 2 dimensions what 3 dimensions will produce in daylight without actually seeing it. So they are, as I said, acts of imagination.
And ironically, Harry Nankin, when you look at these images, turning away from those glossy colour photographs that you used to take of the Alps and other wilderness areas of Australia, and have produced these really stark, ghostly photograms, they are works of extraordinary beauty. They've ended up being just as seductive and just as attractive as the glossy colour photos you used to take. For example, just getting back to the carcasses you talked about before, this kangaroo in this large image, this long rectangle, is stretched out, so it actually looks like the ghost of a kangaroo running. I mean, it's got that movement in it too, with the tail out the back.
Yes, I mean, in many ways that was just a chance find, the way it had died, the way it was shaped. But I actually, to fit it onto the film, I actually moved it a little bit, I rearranged things a little bit in order to emphasise that gesture of running, which is a kind of paradoxical thing. I mean, a dead animal running. I mean, that's the point of many ways of that form that I produced. A tongue-in-cheek, perhaps, but also quite, that contradiction that's in it is I find quite, I don't know, aesthetically powerful.
And the speckles across the whole print are rain, spots of rain.
Yes, I didn't plan it. It was one of those serendipitous events. It was one of those rare days in the Mallee when it actually stormed and light rain fell while we were setting the thing up, and just before the exposure. And for me, it was a welcome phenomenon. I was intrigued as to what would happen. It's one of those cases of not really knowing what rain would look like on film.
Because these images also of these luminous branches and trees and plants, and the carcasses too, they all have text. I think most of your work has some accompanying text or some text worked into it in some way.
Yes, one of the reasons I chose the film material was that it was able to be inscribed by hand with I use a woodworking tool to work into this film surface.
Oh, you actually carve into the surface of the film?
Yes, it's hand applied totally, and the hole in the emulsion creates a kind of light piping which glows beautifully. The texts in this body of work are all drawn from 19th and early 20th century Mallee literature, including a lot of the extracts from the journals of explorers in the Mallee. Now, the reason for that is simply to refer very explicitly to the anthropocentric worldview, in contradiction to what the works actually reveal, if you like, the photographic images reveal, which is a yearning for a biocentric sensibility. And so each piece, in a sense, contains both points of view.
Thank you very much, Harry Nankin. Thank you for showing me the work, and it is indeed, yes, I don't think people will ever look at the Mallee landscape in quite the same way again. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.